Good Monday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. The Browns dropped another one. They lost in Detroit against the Buffalo Bills. Now they will face the Buccaneers Monday, and then Deshaun Watson comes back to face the Texans the following week. Kevin Stefanski, injury update, and a lot of the same about the game that just wrapped up with the Bills.
Injury front. Ethan Posick has a knee injury. That'll be in the weeks, but not entirely sure how many weeks that is. Jack Conklin with that foot injury should be okay. You know, obviously looking back on that game, just some really missed opportunities is what it was. You go play a good football team. You got to capitalize on opportunities when you get down in the red zone. You got to come away with sevens. We just didn't capitalize on opportunities. And then in the second half, we got to find a way to get a stop and play complementary football. And we just didn't do that. And that's when you get those results that we got yesterday. So we got to find a way. Got another good team this week coming to our place, and we got to find a way to go 1-0 this week.
And let's welcome in Quincy Carrier. And Quincy, we've heard that a lot. Your takeaways from the game you saw yesterday against the Bills?
The Bills are a much better football team than the Cleveland Browns. I think sometimes we want to get so deep into the weeds and act like everything is down to like 3 different decisions that everything matters in it. But the fact is that the Buffalo Bills are a better football team than the Browns. And when you're trying to beat a team that's better than you, it requires things, 1, go your way, and 2, that you take advantage of all the opportunities that you have in front of you. And the Browns did not do that. They did not take advantage of most of those opportunities, so they lost the game. This wasn't a game that we felt like the Browns should win coming into it. They had their opportunities. They did not take advantage of those opportunities. We could point to a couple of plays in the red zone early in this game, and in the fumbled snap early in this game. Just those 2 things probably were the 2 things that cost you your opportunity to win the game. This team has problems defensively. We know they have problems defensively. We're hoping that that they're going to take those problems very seriously in the offseason. But this team, as it stands with Jacoby Brissett, is not a better football team than the Bills. And the way I like to compare this for people is like, hey, when Maryland loses to Ohio State, there's not really an individual to blame other than Ohio State just is better than you, and you needed things to go right to win that game. I'm not saying the Browns are as bad as Maryland compared to Ohio State, but we're not close to Buffalo right now with Jacoby Brissett in this defense. We're just not a team that should be beating the Bills. And they played well enough to where they didn't make enough mistakes for the Browns to capitalize on. They didn't throw any interceptions. They didn't turn the ball over. When that happens, you got to take advantage of all your opportunities and drop the ball, literally drop the ball. So it's kind of just my takeaway from it.
When you look at this defense, how do you fix it? I mean, there are a number of issues with it. I think there was a miscalculation on the need for big guys in the interior and a linebacker. I mean, Anthony Walker might have been the linebacker that would help minimize some of that, but they got to readjust what they're thinking with this defense.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem, like as much as we're going to focus on the personnel, and that rightfully so, right? Because the personnel has been attributing to the problem. I think the biggest problem is that nobody trusts the system anymore. Nobody trusts what they're supposed to be doing anymore. Nobody trusts where they're supposed to be anymore. And nobody trusts that the person in front of them is going to be where they're supposed to be anymore. If you listen to these guys in their interview, trust is something that comes up a lot. Where people are going to be, that comes up a lot. They're trying to tell us. That's what they feel like the issue is that nobody really trusts or knows where anybody else is going to be on a given play. And you can have great defensive tackles. That's still going to be a massive problem for you in the run game. So, yeah, the D tackles, that's something personnel can fix. But the big issue is that nobody in this locker room trust anything that they're seeing on their side of the ball. And you can imagine defense is already hard enough when you're trying to decipher what the offense is going to do. It's even harder when before you can do that, you have to decipher what you think your defense is going to do, then look at the offense. So they're getting in their own way. They're making their own problems. And I think that's the biggest problem with this team is that they don't trust anything from what anybody's doing. And when that happens, you have it's a failure at that level, then you just got to move on from the whole unit.
All right. This is from ESPN.com, 11 takeaways from Week 11. Big questions for every game. What to know? The Browns mostly dominated first half at one point. They had almost as many first downs, 10, as the Bills had total yards, 12. In the end, it didn't matter. Browns couldn't stop the run again. Buffalo rushed for 169 yards. And then what happened to Nick Chubb and Cleveland's vaunted run game? Save a meaningless 33-yard touchdown run last week. Chubb has just 49 yards on 24 carries in the last two games. He is consistently facing a loaded box. What do you make of those?
Y'all gonna get me in trouble having to say something negative about Nick Chubb. Y'all gonna get me in trouble. He has not been good the last two games. And look, we can blame it on the offensive line. We can blame it on whoever we want to. The numbers that Nick Chubb has been putting up are unacceptable regardless of the circumstances. We're talking 24 carries on 49 yards. That's not even 2 yards. Well, it's barely 2 yards a carry. Like, that's not acceptable. I don't care if the offensive line is the worst in the NFL, and it's not. Or the boxes are stacked against them. You have Nick Chubb in there because you think at least I'm getting 3.4 per carry on a bad day from him. What he did against Miami, bad. The fumble changed the game there. Another fumble wasn't his fault this week, changed the game this week as well. But, he hasn't been playing well. And to be fair to Nick Chubb, we don't talk about the issues. Well, not the issues. We don't talk about when he has bad games because he's such a good player. But that leads us to act like he doesn't have bad games in the course of a season. And every year he has a couple of bad games like this where he's slow getting downhill, where he's stringing things out too long, where he's getting caught behind the line of scrimmage way too often, more often than he normally does. And he's not just downhill cutting. We did this last year with him. He's doing this again. He has a couple of games like this every year, and then he'll bounce back to being Nick Chubb again, especially once Deshaun comes back and those things lighten up. So I'm not really worried about Nick Chubb long term, but if we're talking about the last 2 weeks, Nick Chubb not being very productive in the meaningful parts of this game on the ground as a runner has been a part of the problem offensively and why the offense hasn't looked like it has the previous weeks when he was running at that level. I mean, like this is an offense that is going to go as far as Nick Chubb can run them, and he has not been running them very far. He's been less productive than, not Kareem Hunt for 2 weeks, but he was less productive than Kareem Hunt this week, and Kareem Hunt only had like 6 carries.
All right, Denzel Ward talked about Joe Woods and the Browns' defense earlier today.
I mean, I don't feel like he's on the hot seat. I don't think all the pressure or all the blame should be on Joe. Like I say, he's a great coordinator and has a great defense. And we got to do our part and go out there and execute it to the best of our ability. So, I mean, we got to take credit for or own up to our own mistakes and everything. But we're all in this together. It's not just one person or one coach. And we just got to try to find a way to go out and get a win. Yeah, I think Joe's a great D coordinator. We're all in this together. And I feel like it takes all of it. It's not just if something happens out there, it's not just Joe. He didn't just call a bad call or it's one guy just messed up. I mean, we're all in this together. So everyone makes mistakes here and there, whether that's a bad call or a bad play or give up a play. I mean, those guys are good on the other side of the ball as well. So we just got to try to find a way to put it all together and try to find a way to get a win. I don't think guys are turning on each other at all. I mean, our main focus is trying to get a win. Obviously, our record is not as we want it to be, but I mean, you turn on the tape and you see guys out there competing, going hard, and like I said, trying to find a way to get a win. We got to try to find a way to finish. We started the game out strong, but I think we just got to try to find a way to play a full 60-minute game.
Quincy, there are different factions where you hear different things from guys on that defense.
Yeah. I mean, if we kind of look at the lines and who's playing well, who's not, it's kind of obvious where these things go. But yeah, there is a issue there. I mean, this is the second year in a row we're talking about the defensive locker room being split apart on some kind of issue. It's a problem, right? It's a problem. It's a problem that not just changing the coordinator is going to solve. It's a problem that you have to probably move out some players. Like similar, look, they did this to the offense last year, right? And this is what gives me hope with Andrew Barrett. They had to do this to the offense, where the offense was just a mess. It was as bad as the defense was this year. It's unfortunate we keep seesawing like this, right? Offense bad 1 year, defense bad 1 year, offense bad. But this does give you hope, right? Because the offense was this much of a mess last year. And in the offseason, they did a good job of just getting rid of a bunch of people, filtering in a bunch of new people. And now the offense is pretty good. And we haven't even added Deshaun Watson yet. Defensively, they're going to have to do the same thing. There's going to be a bunch of people that have to get filtered out. There's going to be a bunch of people who are going to get filtered back in. And then there's going to be some changes that need to be made structurally to this offense. Now, if that includes Joe Woods returning, man, I just don't see how he can return with a straight face. But because like this isn't like last year where we're like, oh, Miles got like there's no thing to point at that's like tanking the defense individually like we could with the offense last year. It's just a group effort of stink. So I just can't see how he comes back. But if you're looking for anything to be positive about, we had to do the same thing to the offense last year. They were able to do it successfully and get that turnaround in a year. So there's reason to believe that this front office can do the same thing with the defense. And it's not like they made a bunch of signings. They made some trades, they made some clever moves, and it worked out.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we will head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about the defense. Sports4CLE will be back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled and Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Ron from Cleveland, lifetime Browns fan, 1963. Love you guys' show. Just wanted to comment about the Browns state right now. I think it's pretty apparent right now that we don't really have a prayer getting to the playoffs, and I think that's due in part to our general manager's inability to define the positions we need help with, as he went into this last season knowing how bad we needed wide receivers and especially how bad we needed a defensive line, and that's came back to bite him. He goes out and gets Amari Cooper, great pickup, but hey, we needed more than one. And when it comes down to the defensive line, I don't have to say a word because we've been rode hard all year long. Everybody just runs the ball, and if we do start stopping people, then our defensive backs are always out or out of position, one of the two. So I think the Browns really need to step back, take a look at the state of things, and make the necessary adjustments, or we're going to be seeing the same kind of results next year. That is, unless Deshaun Watson can put up 50 points a game. Thanks a lot. As always, go Browns, Wolf.
Appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, I think fans are Browns can't come out and say that they weren't going all in for this season based on the number of veterans you have and the guys that you signed. I think when they found out, the length of the suspension, it kind of changed the way they were thinking about this year.
Well, when they decided to move on from Baker Mayfield was when this whole thing really started becoming about the next few years instead of next year, right? Because with Baker Mayfield, when there was a belief by some that he could have been a franchise quarterback, the strategy was this year, right? This year, right now. We're going to be good as we can this year, right now. And you can see that in their defensive line moves, right? They signed Malik Jackson. They signed these one-year deals at this position to kind of plug those holes. Then this year, they trade for Deshaun Watson. They know that, hey, regardless, if we're going to trade for Deshaun Watson, that's going to be a year-plus kind of move because we're kind of doing that for the future because we know he's going to get suspended at some point, right? Even before the 11 or 6 or whatever game came out, we know he's going to get suspended. So a portion of the season might not go the way you expect, and that's probably why they didn't make the same signings that they usually do at defensive tackle to make those duct tape solutions, right? Like, it's not rocket science to tell that the win-loss record this year without Deshaun Watson was not really what Stefanski's going to be evaluated on. Now, as far as the caller's point about what Andrew Berry could have done, I think the argument shouldn't be, hey, he didn't do anything with free agency. I think the argument should be, why didn't he draft better at these positions? What's going on at the defensive line position when it comes to the draft evaluation of these positions that we can't get productive players because we have spent 3 draft picks on defensive tackles and they have not been productive. The free agency thing, like, I get why they don't want to spend big money on a defensive tackle, but you have to hit in the draft if that's going to be your strategy. And Jordan Elliott, Tommy Togiai, Perrion Winfrey, none of those guys have been impact players by any stretch of the imagination this year. So that's a huge hit on Andrew Berry, but he does have a lot of swings and a lot of hits too when it comes to this because you mentioned the wide receiving core. I'm not disappointed with what they're getting out of receiving. You have 2 guys on track to being 1,000-yard wide receivers, David Njoku, who he re-signed in the offseason, which was not a no-brainer thing, really blossomed this year. He made some really good decisions on that side of the ball offensively. The question has to be asked, what's going on with some of these defensive evaluations on the line of scrimmage to why they are so off? Is it because of the advice you're getting from the defensive staff? Is it not being helpful? Is it what you're looking for? Is it the process? That's what they have to ask themselves, because the reason they're in this hole is because the players that they drafted for the last couple of years to be defensive tackles have not worked out like they have at every other position that they have drafted, right? Like, they have done a good job of drafting and replacing talent on this team, except for that position. They have to ask themselves, why is that the case?
Yeah. The JOK looks like a hit at the linebacker core. You've had some swings and misses there, but the defensive tackle position in particular has been a problem drafting. We talked a little bit earlier about, is the defense kind of at a fracture point in that defensive meeting room? Kevin Stefanski addressed the defense and that very topic.
I think when you're 3-7, there's frustration. I mean, that's what we are today, 3-7. But bottom line is we got to be, every person in this building, players, coaches, staff, you name it, have to have that attitude of fixing anything that needs to be fixed. And that's where our focus is today. I can't speak to those specific things that those guys said, but those are conversations I'll have with our guys.
And that was kind of in reference to the questions you had about Joe Woods or being prepared or those kind of things. It is not good with what's going on with the defense.
Yeah, the big problem with the defense is they were supposed to be really good, right? Like, that's the problem is that if they were supposed to be okay and they were this bad, I don't think they would be as angry about it internally in the locker room. But the fact that they're supposed to be really good, and instead of being really good, they're really, really bad, That's the problem, right? That's the issue that they ultimately have defensively, is that they stink on levels that they should not stink at because they're too talented to be this stinky. And I think they bring that up all the time whenever they're interviewed. And I think, look, you're going to have locker room problems whenever you stink like that and you're that disappointed. You're going to have issues. It's not going to be a fun place to work when you're 3-7 and it's solely because the defense is completely underwhelmed. It's not going to be a fun place to go defensively. Same way the offense wasn't a fun place to go. And look, we can talk about, hey, is this going to destroy the locker room for years to come? The reality is it does not matter, like it did not matter with the offense. Could Baker Mayfield destroy the locker room offensively last year? You can make the argument. But did it matter this year? No, because you got rid of a bunch of people. That's probably what's going to happen on the defensive side of the ball.
All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
A couple weeks ago, I made a comment about, who would I want as a defensive coordinator, and I mentioned, of course, John Butler, and I still stand by that. Also coming out of the Bills organization, their special teams are ranked top 5. And if we were to get another special teams coordinator, I would like to go young. The name is Corey Harkey. I think the Bills has a great special teams unit just by looking today. And I think that he would add a lot of knowledge to our, of course, young kicker. So I think that would be a good fit.
All right, as always, appreciate all the voicemails. I'm not familiar or as familiar. I know I've heard the name John Butler. Don't know a lot about him. Don't know a lot about Corey Harkey. But Browns are certainly going to do their due diligence in those two areas, I'm sure.
Yeah, and what I'm interested to see if this search happens, because Joe Woods is still technically employed by the Cleveland Browns. If this search does happen, I'm more interested in what are the traits in common with all the candidates that they bring in to interview, because that's really is going to tell me what the direction is of this defense. What are they looking for in these individuals? What positions do they have in common, right? Are they going to go for another secondary passing game coordinator like Joe Woods was in San Francisco, or are they going to go for somebody who has more experience along the front seven, and that's where their expertise is? It's more than likely going to be somebody we don't know. Like maybe a coach gets fired and a good defensive coordinator pops up and the Browns are able to get him, but that's not very likely. I think it's more likely that we do get somebody like a John Butler that we don't, that's not really a household name. As far as special teams coordinators go, just get a different one, dog. I don't even think you need somebody good. Like, you just need somebody that's going to be able to do the normal stuff, right? Like, just get a different one. Like, I'm not very particular. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not like I have somebody in name. I just want somebody different, because somebody different got to be better, right?
and the special teams coordinator doesn't work with the kickers. They usually, if you want to blame,
they're not teaching the kickers how to kick.
It's schemes, it's coverage, it's return. That's a facet.
Teams coordinator. The special teams coordinator's most important job is convincing somebody who was a 4-year starter in college to go out there and bust a wedge on special teams. That's his job, right? Like, hey, can you do this for me? That's it. That's all he's got to do. Just run some basic, like, it's just some basic stuff that they need. We don't need a special coordinator out here to show us how good he is at special teams coordinating. I'm good, bro. I believe you. You know what I mean? Just do the normal stuff, though. Like, no more of this fancy, we're going to catch the punt at the 5-yard line or take all the kicks out to be smarter than the rest of the league. I'm over all of that. Just do what everybody else does. We could have special teams coached by committee if that just meant we would do what everybody else would do, because I'm tired of watching us do stuff nobody else does on special teams.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take another time out. Other side of the break, we will head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Take a look at where the Browns sit right now. It's not real pretty. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled and Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Everybody keeps putting pressure on Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry about some of the talent that they have chosen to be on this team, but I don't know. It seems like they really haven't invested much besides Deshaun, and when they have invested in Deshaun, it's been minimal gains and minimal trades. And in my opinion, I think Andrew is really waiting to see any bigger names for the next free agency period, which is, of course, next year. And I think that's when we will go all in. And hopefully if Stefanski fires Joe Wood and we get somebody with leadership and can develop good players, I think we could be a contender for the next 2 to 3 years, in my opinion.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, they signed their own guys that they drafted and developed to the long-term contracts. Deshaun Watson's got a big price tag that's going to hit. Ward has a big price tag that's going to hit. It's not like they're going to be able to go out and spend a lot of money in free agency. And, oh, by the way, they don't have a first-round pick.
Yeah, well, I think the problem isn't with this team is that they don't have the big pieces, right? The big pieces are there. You have a lot of big pieces there. The problem with this team is some of the in-between stuff and some of the just locker room stuff with the defense, right? Like they just don't believe in what they're being asked to do. I think that can be a tremendous fix in everything, right? The reason they played so well against the Bengals partly is because they had a better plan, but they also know from experience we're going to do what we have to do against this team because we always play well against this team. That's the one game where I feel like they all believed in what they were going to do. They trusted what they were supposed to do, and it worked. The team is talented. They are very talented. The talent isn't the issue. It's more or less getting the things around it, fixing the things around it to get it in the right position. And I think that's what they need to focus on in the offseason. They don't need big-name acquisitions. They got Myles Garrett already. They have Denzel Ward already. They have a JOK. They have big-name talent. They don't need more of it. They need probably some workman-like pieces and some better scheming from the defensive coordinator. I don't know why it came out like that, but that's what they need.
Yeah, they got to put their guys in position to be successful. That's my one criticism of the defense. They're not putting those guys in positions to be successful. This one was really kind of interesting, too, and I guess if you think about it, it's accurate. This is from the NFL on CBS. So the Browns under Kevin Stefanski were 11-5 in his first season, and the last two they're 11-16. And I guess when you are doing the day-to-day and the week-to-week, it doesn't seem like that. But when you look at it in those terms, it kind of slaps you across the face. They need to get that corrected. 11-16 is not. This is not the most patient ownership group. Let's say that.
Yeah. I mean, like they're 11-16 partly because one of those years a problem came up that they spent a lot of money and time trying to fix, and that solution has not showed up yet, right? So that's part of the explanation there, and I think Jimmy Haslam is well aware of that. So I think they'll have the time. Look, we can talk about what his record is the last two seasons. It really does not matter right now. It's like, what happens when Deshaun Watson comes out here? This is going to be, even though the Browns aren't really in playoff contention anymore, The 6 games in December and January are going to be the most important games for everybody on this coaching staff and in this regime, because that's where you can't mess around no more. If you don't look good with Deshaun Watson, you're not going to get a lot more time to fix that, right? People aren't going to be patient with it. We're willing to be patient when we don't look great with Jacoby Brissett out there. People aren't going to be patient when you got a $230 million quarterback and he doesn't look good. And I think that's what all the focus has to be on, is making sure that, hey, Deshaun's in position to be successful and that he looks good when he's out there, because that's really what this season has been about, is getting Deshaun Watson ready for what we think is going to be a big season next year.
All right, this is also kind of interesting. So the Browns are now 0-5 on the year when they score on their opening drive. And again, you would think those are the scripted plays. You would think you've got, okay, after that we go here, here, and here, and it just hasn't worked.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of a coincidence thing to me, more so than it is like correlation to anything else. I think the problem has been you will get those scoring drives, and then the defense just gives points right back up, or they put you in a bad field position spot. It just, again, they haven't been playing complimentary football all year, and the Browns have been able to score all year. So when you have stuff like that going on and your defense is playing as bad, you're going to have stats like that pop up. Because, the Browns are 0-5 when they scored a touchdown. That just tells you more and more that the offense has not been the problem this year. That's really what that screams to me, is that the defense has really been the issue this year.
All right, Pro Football Focus, the highest graded Browns from yesterday's game, so Week 11. Jacoby Brissett at almost a 90. Amari Cooper over 88. Myles Garrett 84. Kareem Hunt 80. Donovan Peoples-Jones at 74.6. 4 of the 5, offense along with Myles Garrett. And that's, again, more of the same. Offense is playing well, defense is not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Bizarre World, right? Last year was the defense, this year's the offense. It's like if we could just have last year's defense with this year's offense, we would be a really, really good team, right? We would be probably one of the best teams in the AFC if we could put those two things together. But unfortunately, we live in the seesaw dimension, and we keep doing the seesaw, right? Every year, a seesaw. Offense was good in 2020. Defense was bad in 2020. Offense was bad in 2021. Defense is good. Now the offense is back to being good. Defense back to being bad. So I don't know. If the offense stinks next year, somebody's probably getting fired, right? If the seesaw continues, I would say somebody's probably getting fired, because that would require a bad year offensively with Deshaun Watson. So it's just been one of those weird things. The offense is really good this year, and they really don't have any reason to be as good as they've been, but the defense has no reason to be as bad as they've been. And here we are.
That's where we're at. All right, Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We will head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, take a look at some quarterback play and what Quincy thinks Deshaun might be showing up and doing for the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy, carrier of untitled and unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Everybody gives Kevin Stefanski trouble saying that they need to fire him. But in all actuality, what would they really fire him for? He got the QB that he wanted. Unfortunately, they had to wait for 11 games. And he's still running the same offense that Baker Mayfield was running the last 2 years. So why fire a guy who doesn't even want to run this offense but is forced to? And like he's trying. The guy is trying. But we got to be patient. This offense will be night and day when Deshaun Watson takes control. I believe it will be night and day. I believe we'll see more option, read option, triple option, RPOs, but we'll still have the same foundation for offense.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, what do you your thoughts on that offense with Deshaun Watson? Does he instantly make it better, do you think?
Instantly, I think he makes it much harder to defend. Statistically, I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's going to be much harder to defend. It's just a different team, right? Like, again, the issue I've had with all the talk of, hey, if Watson's in this game or if he's not in this game, if it's going to make a difference or not, is that it's such a hard thing to gauge because this is not like we're just going to be running the same plays we'll be running some of the same plays that Jacoby's out there. But defensively, your philosophy when you're going up against Jacoby Brissett is much, 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 much different than when you're going up against Deshaun Watson. It's a different team to game plan for because of that. And that's going to change how teams approach you for the rest of the year. It's going to be a very, very different team to game plan for that's going to open up things for some guys. It's going to close off some things for other guys, right? I don't think Amari Cooper is probably going to be as effective when Deshaun Watson's out there because teams aren't going to be willing to single him up as much as when they are as what they are with Jacoby Brissett. But it might open up Donovan Peoples-Jones. It might open up David Njoku, right? Things are going to open up Nick Chubb. It might open things up for Nick Chubb, right? Who's been kind of stuffed for the last 2 weeks. So that's what it's going to do to the offense. It's going to be a much different offense to defend, and it's going to be a much more difficult offense to game plan for. That's going to be the big change. Whether that results in more wins or losses, I'm not 100% sure because I don't know the effect that Deshaun just being there mentally is going to have on the defense, right? So it probably is going to help them. I don't know if it's going to make them much better than what they are and fix some of the issues that they have, but it's going to have an effect. It's going to have a massive effect.
All right, so let's take a look. These are updated QBR rankings through last night's games. Tua Tagovailoa, number 1 overall, 83.1. Josh Allen is third at 73.2. Jalen Hurts, fifth. I think Jacoby Brissett, sixth. So that's how well he is playing. A higher QBR than both Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrows and Tom Brady. And then Baker Mayfield, 31st at 17.8. And there's talk in Carolina that they want to see Sam Darnold. But the point of that is Jacoby Brissett is playing pretty well. His QBR is high. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year you were going to get better quarterback play from Jacoby Brissett QBR relative to Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, I'd have said, boy, are we getting a home playoff game? I wouldn't have said, yeah, we're at 3-7.
Because we thought this defense was going to be good, man. We thought this defense was going to be good. The signs were there. They fooled us. We got sold a lot this year. That's really all that. We got sold a bill of lies in the offseason about this defense, man. And it's not like people were lying about the defense. Everybody who said this defense could be good had reason to believe that this defense would be good because who wouldn't have thought this Browns defense would be good? Nobody saw the implosion of this unit coming without serious injuries, right? We thought this could be possible if Myles Garrett went down for the year early in the season or something. We didn't think this was possible if Myles was out there, right? So it has been an implosion that it can't be anticipated for. I will say, look, I know people are emotional. They want Kevin fired because he's not emotional, whatever it is. Think about this, man. Kevin got more out of Baker Mayfield and y'all believe this, with one arm, torn labrum, he was out there with one arm. That's what everybody says, right? He got more out of a one-arm Baker Mayfield than Carolina getting out of a healthy one.
Yeah.
And if that don't tell you that that man can coach on that side of the ball, then, and I know people are like, well, he's not an offensive coordinator or whatever it is. The fact is, in the NFL, if you want a good offensive coordinator for a very long time with your team, you have to hire that offensive coordinator to be your head coach. That's just how this thing works, right? Because a good offensive coordinator is going to get poached off your roster in like a year or two. So, hey, he's a very good offensive coordinator. If a lot of people who are saying that, say that, gotta keep him, because look at what he's doing to some of this quarterback play. Like, I don't think anybody has left Kevin Stefanski and gotten better. Right, Kirk Cousins did not get better after Kevin Stefanski. I don't think Jacoby Brissett will have a better year without Kevin Stefanski than he's having right now. The same thing can be said with Baker Mayfield, who had his best season with Kevin Stefanski. And then we looked at what he's borderline unplayable right now in Carolina. So that's a positive sign for the offense and gives you confidence when Deshaun's coming in there. But whatever happened this year to let this defense become as bad as it was, that has to be figured out.
I agree. All right, before I let you go, you tweeted this out and take us through a little bit. Stat predictions for Deshaun Watson. So this is in 6 games, 1,820 total yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 INTs. He's going to get sacked. And you say people are going to focus on the fact that he's getting sacked, and you're guessing a 3-3 record.
At least a 3-3 record. I think he at least gets 3 wins. I got bit because I was perfect on my Jacoby Brissett prediction, except for that win-loss. I thought they were going to get 6-7 games, right? Everything else was right, so I went a little bit lower than I normally would with the win total. But the reason I say this, like, the big thing that I saw when I put that out there was people were like, you think he's going to get sacked 18 times? That's a lot. Yes, it is. One of the things with Deshaun Watson, though, as much as we talk about all the good, he's going to get sacked a lot. He takes a lot of sacks. It's just part of his style of play. And I know the ideal and the myth out there is that he's had terrible offensive lines in Houston. In some years, that's absolutely true. But some years, he's had some of the better offensive lines in football. When they traded for Laramie Tunsil, the year they went to the playoffs, that was a good offensive line. He still took 3 sacks a game. Like, he's just going to take sacks. And I think at some point, sacks become a quarterback stat. Guys like Russell Wilson take the same amount of sacks wherever they are that they do now. Baker Mayfield took 2.2 sacks in Cleveland, went to Carolina with the worst offensive line, takes 2.4 sacks. Like, they're going to take the same amount of sacks because that's part of their style of play, is why they get sacked a lot. So he's going to get sacked a lot. People are going to act like it's rust, or they're going to act like the offensive line's bad or try to run Jed Wills out of town for it. I don't think that will be the reason he's actually getting sacked. I think the reason he's going to have a ton of sacks because Deshaun's just going to take a ton of sacks. And I think that's one of the things we're going to have to get used to about him. He's going to bring a lot of good. He's going to have a lot of magical plays where he just slips out the pocket and throws the ball and he does something crazy. He's also going to take some sacks.
Yeah, he tries to extend plays and believes a play is never dead. So that will lead to a few sacks without question. Quincy Carrier, as always, man, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem. Have a good Thanksgiving and everything else, man.
All right, appreciate it. Quincy Carrier. Make sure you check him out. Untitled, unfiltered coverage. Really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I know the score indicates that it was a one-possession loss, but it wasn't even that close. The Bills went to prevent defense and allowed the Browns to score 13 points in garbage time. Once again, the defense gives up 30 points. Once again, the defense allows a running back to have a career game. Matter of fact, both running backs had career games. At this point, I'm just sick to my stomach of losing. I'm not even excited for Watson to return. I'm truly not, because I want Watson to play meaningful games, and obviously this season he won't be. I don't know what else to say anymore. I've been a diehard fan since birth, I guess, and I just can't watch this team anymore. I mean, why show any emotion and care for this team, because these players sure don't seem like they care. Once the season's over, they're going to be in the Bahamas soaking up the sun while we fans wake up every day, go to work, and be sad and depressed that our team has failed to make the playoffs once again. Well, for the final time in 2022, this is Rico signing off. And just like the Browns love to say, see you next year.
Rico, you got to call back. We appreciate all the voicemails. Brad, it gets deflating watching a defense that just can't stop the run. They know it's coming, and they can't stop a run. The Bills haven't had a 100-yard rusher, and I think they had two that were within striking distance at 86 yards each, 85, 86 each.
You know, Dave, Rico's right. The thing about this team is it's a hard team to like. It's a hard team to like. They don't have an identity, Dave. They don't have they haven't showed outside of like Jacoby Brissett's performance, they haven't showed like a ton of heart. There's not a lot of personality to this team. There's just some guys that are aloof at times, it feels like. In that lack of identity and personality and leadership or heart in certain circumstances and the way they've lost certain games makes this team kind of unlikable. And it stinks to say that, but it's hard to like this team. And I feel Rico's pain.
Yeah. You know, Brissett seems really likable. Nick Chubb seems likable. And those are two of the big ones. All right. So what's the plan going forward? Let's talk a little bit about this. When you look at this, how do they look? 3-7, they're not making the playoffs. They could win out and still not make the playoffs, and I have huge concerns about them winning out. So how do you save the season? What's the plan for the season moving forward?
So focus obviously turns somewhat towards Watson, right? So you want to evaluate things with Watson. Now, I think that winning against Tampa Bay can at least give you the, however far-fetched it is, and I'm not saying this is realistic in any sense, but the illusion that playoffs are still a statistical chance. And even that illusion does make his games more valuable as long as that's still a possibility. If it's still like, oh, what if he runs the table? I think that makes his games more valuable at that point because it feels, at least to the players and fans, like they're still playing for something, even if it's a long shot, right? And I agree with you, they're not going to make the playoffs, but just creating that hope, and hope is a powerful thing, does help, I think. So I think winning this next game would be important in that regard. And then you turn your focus towards the defense, right? So I believe Joe Woods will lose his job in the offseason. as well as Mike Prefer. I don't think that they will lose their job before that, because I think that it will have to come from above Stefanski. I don't think Stefanski is going to pull the trigger on anything like that. So I think it would have to come from Barry. So I think it'll be in the off season. So I think you start looking, I put out an article with a number of DC candidates. There's good guys out there to get. There's up and comers, there's veteran coaches, but there's a number of defensive coordinators you could bring in to do this job. So you start back channeling that information. You also evaluate your defense for who you want to be a part of this thing long term, right? Who are the guys that I want to be a part of my defense going forward, and who are guys that I don't want to be a part of this program anymore? So I think there's an evaluation phase. Obviously, Watson is a huge part of this. But yeah, I think that this defense is going to be a new DC with a new philosophy, and you need to decide who you're going to keep as a part of that going forward. So that evaluation and watching Watson will be what the rest of the season's about.
When you look at the potential DC candidate names, anybody that jumps up that you like, that you think,
I like the Evero. I don't even know how to pronounce. Is it Hero Evero? He is the DC for Denver right now. He is fantastic. Although the more and more I keep reading about him, he's getting thrown into head coaching conversations. So he is a really good candidate out there. I think that I also wrote about, obviously, Mike Zimmer. He is with Jackson State actually right now. They just went undefeated. He's a consultant for Coach Prime down there. So he's still involved in the game. I know he lost his son recently. So it's kind of a question of whether he wants to be a part of the game or not. But I know there's direct ties there, obviously, to Stefanski and Barry. And I think he would do a good job. So those are just a couple names. There's a lot out there, obviously. Certainly, Brian Flores is an interesting name, but I think he'll honestly get a head coaching job. And it's a little weird with the lawsuit lingering right now. So there's some names out there, but those were the two of the major ones that I identified that I think would be a good hire.
The other thing that you kind of mentioned a little bit, the Browns have not been able to make key plays pretty much all season.
It is their downfall. In every NFL game, there's 10 to 15 plays that make a difference in winning the game or not, Dave. And they just don't make winning plays, right? Like when it comes down to that play in the game where momentum shifts one way or the other, and there's a number of them, the Browns just don't make those plays. And whether it's overcoming one person, and the example I look back at yesterday is like Dawson Knox gets the ball out in the flat, and it's just him and Delpit. And he has, Delpit has him lined up for an open field tackle. If they stop him, they keep the lead, they punt the ball back, and Knox runs him over. And it's just an effort play. He doesn't wrap up and make the open field tackle. Knox runs him over, gets the first down. They go down and score and take the lead. It's plays like that, get off the field or first down, and they go down and score, and your guy loses. They do that all the time. The third and fourth down, they make more harder than it needs to be with two QB sneaks. They fumble the ball on a snap. It's just things like that. They get in their own way, and they don't make winning plays. Harrison Bryant has a wide open touchdown in the end zone, and he jumps out backwards and weird and lands somehow before his feet can get down. Like, just make a winning play, go up and catch the ball and get your feet down. It's stuff like that, that other teams do that the Browns just find a way to not do, Dave, and it's extremely frustrating.
Brad Ward and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we will head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyez on Cleveland podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Howard from Marin County. What can I say? The Browns are awful. The offensive line is awful. Granted, they have injuries. I wouldn't keep Conklin or Wills around. I will say that Amari Cooper is great. He is a fantastic player. If I were the owner, I would probably get rid of Joe Woods. I would get rid of Prefer. I mean, my God, blocking all those field goals. And I would get rid of Stefanski. He doesn't know how to adjust in a game. I basically would flush them all. And, of course, the person I would flush the most would have to be Mr. Barry and the Harvard boys. Terrible draft picks, terrible. So I'm an old man, and I don't ever think I will live to see the Browns play in the Super Bowl. Thanks, Dave.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And, Brad, I get the frustration. I'm not ready to give up on Jedrick Wills just yet. He does have plays where you kind of look at it and go, man, what's going on? I can't defend Woods or Prefer anymore. I've kind of defended them. I would definitely not get rid of Stefanski and Barry just yet. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I ditto to all of what you said there. I think that Jedrick Wills, despite the frustration with him, it's hard to find a left tackle in the NFL. It's hard to find a good one. So even if he's performing at an inconsistent to average level, I think you at least need to give him more time. So I think it's inevitable kind of that they'll give him that fifth-year option and see how that plays out. They've invested enough in that position in him to see what he turns into, and more time with Bill Callahan usually results in better things. So I will reserve right to, later see how he does, but I'm not ready to cut ties with him. And I think that Barry and Stefanski, I think, are a part of this going forward, at least through a full season of Watson being here. And I don't even know if Barry would be dismissed after that. But I think that Stefanski is a good offensive play caller and a good offensive mind. And I think that when you have one of those, you want to hold on to him, because you'll regret it later. He'll find a job someplace else, and you'll be sitting here going, gosh darn it, we had him as our head coach, but we didn't let him get his chance with his QB1 and his guys. So I'm willing to see what he has to do, and I think that he will ultimately find success in this offense.
Yeah, I would agree. And the point about Andrew Barry's draft picks, it's a fair point at this point in time. A lot of them have not panned out. And that's why you wait a couple years to judge draft classes as opposed to, 1 year or so. So fair point with the draft class. I can't argue with that. All right, Kevin Stefanski talked about the standing of defensive coordinator Joe Woods and the coaching staff today.
My focus is on us getting better. My focus is on us getting a win versus Tampa, playing good offense, playing good defense, playing good special teams. That's where my focus is.
It's not easy for a head coach to make changes on his staff. You've been on staffs where the head coach has made changes. What contributes to your reluctance to do that? Is it loyalty to Joe and Mike, or is it you think they're doing a good job or the best job they could?
Yeah, Tony, my focus really is on this week and what we can do this week, to find a win. I understand frustration. I get it. I own it. I own in all of it. So we got to share it as players, coaches, staff, all that.
So again, Brad, just not answering the question, and I get it. What's he supposed to say if he's not gonna? He's in a no-win situation when you ask him those questions. But those questions do have to be asked.
Yeah, I was surprised that he didn't reply with support for them. Usually that's what he would do because that's all he can do, right? Like that's all you can do in the situation is just say, yeah, no, they're doing their best, but he avoided it completely, like completely avoided any answer we're focused on this week. So I was a little surprised at that, but what can he say? He can't say anything else. It's mid-season. If they're not making a move right now, then he can't say anything about the standing of those guys. And it's super frustrating. You can see the frustration on his face, and he, that's all he can say is either I support them or don't say anything at all. And even if he doesn't support them, he kind of has to say that he does until they don't have a job there. Otherwise, it's a bad look for the whole organization.
Yep. It's a tough spot. And, nobody signs up to be 3-7 without question. No. Brad Ward, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you, Dave. Make
sure you read them in the Orange and Brown Report, as well as check out the All Eyez on Cleveland podcast. Brad Ward, as always, good stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.